Hello everyone, welcome to today's story. James was ready to propose, convinced that his love could overcome every barrier. But just as hope was within reach, fate struck. Diep collapsed on her way to work, and the doctor's words shattered everything. Can James stay strong enough to protect the woman he loves while fighting alongside her against a deadly illness? Stay tuned to find out. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that touch the heart. In the quiet room, the morning light slipped through the window, falling across the wooden table in a warm golden streak. James sat in silence, his eyes fixed on the red velvet box in his hands. Slowly, he opened it, letting the light fall upon the glittering ring inside. The small stone caught the sunlight, sparkling like a promise of eternity. James gazed at it for a long while before exhaling softly, a smile forming on his lips, both anxious and filled with joy. He had thought so much of the days Diep toiled in the fields, of the afternoons she quietly carried vegetables to market, of the long nights she endured alone. A burning desire rose within him to protect her, to become the shoulder she could lean on, instead of letting her bear the weight of loneliness alone. Today, he had decided he could not let her wait any longer. With each passing day, James felt the bond in his heart grow deeper, and he believed Diep understood as well. He was certain that when this ring was offered, she would nod her head, not only for love, but because they had already endured so many trials together. His fingers tightened around the ring box. In James's eyes shone an uncommon resolve. He knew this love was no longer a fleeting feeling, but a choice. A choice to walk together to the very end, no matter the distance, no matter the barriers. At that moment, James felt his heart pound as if it might burst from his chest. He closed his eyes for a second, whispering as though making a vow to himself. "Diep, today I will tell you everything. I will not let you wait any longer." He shut the box, slipped it into his pocket, his hand gripping it as though holding their entire future. Inside him swirled joy and nervous anticipation, but above all, an unshakable belief. She would say yes. That morning, Diep stepped out of her house. The rooster's crow still echoed, the fresh air carrying the scent of damp earth after the night's rain. But after only a few steps, she suddenly froze. A wave of dizziness crashed over her, sending her head spinning. Her hand flew up to cover half her face, her breath quick and shallow, as if she had just run a great distance. Confused, a vague fear stirred in her heart. What's happening to me? Why do I feel so heavy? But before she could find an answer, her legs gave way, and she sank into the familiar bamboo chair in the yard. On the table, the old teapot and a bottle of water from the day before still sat untouched. Diep braced herself against the rough wooden surface, struggling to steady her breathing. Beads of sweat formed at her temples, trickling down the collar of her shirt. Closing her eyes, she whispered to herself, "Just rest a moment. I'll be fine. There's still so much to do." Her gaunt face grew paler in the morning light. Bent forward, her frail shoulders shook with each labored breath, yet her eyes still carried a flicker of determination. To Diep, pausing too long meant abandoning her work, and that was something she could not allow. After a short rest, she lifted a trembling hand to wipe the sweat from her forehead. The dizziness seemed to ease slightly. Drawing a deep breath, she told herself, "I'm fine now. I can keep going. I can't be weak like this." Rising to her feet, Diep took one step after another out of the yard. The familiar dirt path stretched ahead, lined with weeds, still beaded with dew. Each step weighed heavy, as if carrying the burden of her whole life. But she bit her lip and pressed on. Within her was only a simple belief. She had to keep working, because everything depended on her. Yet, after only a short distance, her breath faltered again. Her chest tightened, her legs turned weak, as if drained of all strength. She stopped, collapsing onto the grassy roadside, her trembling hands pressed against the ground, her vision blurred, the world before her spinning like a tilted canvas. A moment later, her fragile body gave way. Her pale face sank into the green grass, messy strands of hair falling across her cheek. The sounds around her drifted away, leaving only a terrifying silence. On that serene mountain morning, Diep's sudden collapse tore through the calm like a jagged crack, foretelling a tragedy no one had expected. Fortunately, that dirt road was not completely deserted. From a distance, a woman carrying a hoe on her back spotted Diep's figure collapsed in the grass. She gasped in shock, dropped her load, and rushed over. Bending down, she saw the girl's pale face and faint breath, and cried out in alarm, her voice echoing across the hillside. The cry drew several farmers working nearby, who hurried over. They fumbled to lift Diep upright, one wiping the sweat from her face, another rushing off to call for help. Diep's small dog ran circles around them, barking urgently, as if urging everyone to move faster. One quick-thinking villager sped ahead on a motorbike to summon a car from the village. Minutes later, an old vehicle from a neighbor's family rattled up. The door swung open, and many hands carefully guided Diep inside, laying her on the seat, propping a small pillow under her head so it wouldn't fall to the side. All along the bumpy road toward the town, worry clouded every face. One held tea lightly to Diep's hand. Another kept urging the driver to go faster. No one spoke much, but the silence weighed heavier than words. They all clung to the same desperate hope. Heaven, let her hold on just a little longer until we reach the hospital. In the small garden shaded by bamboo, James sat at the bamboo table, a steaming teapot before him. His heart burned with impatience. Since morning, he had kept the engagement ring ready, waiting for the moment he could give Diep a promise for life. Yet as time passed, her familiar figure had not appeared. He looked out toward the worn dirt path, his thoughts in disarray. With every rustle of leaves, every distant bark of a dog, he imagined Diep had returned. But each time, there was only emptiness. James opened the red velvet box, gazed at the glittering ring, then shut it again, as if to hold tight to his faith. He whispered to himself, "Perhaps she is busy. Just a little longer, surely she'll be home." But minutes turned into hours, patience slowly giving way to unease. His eyes grew troubled. Dark possibilities flickered through his mind, tightening his chest. Unable to hold back, James pulled out his phone and called Diep. The ringing went on and on, but the other end was silent. A swell of dread rose inside him, consuming him. He lowered his head onto the table, struggling to steady himself. Yet in his eyes, fear was already etched deep. For James knew, Diep would never leave him waiting like this, unless something terrible had happened. In the stark white hospital room, Diep lay unconscious, her face pale, her lips parched. From her hand, an IV bag dripped slowly, each drop stretching out the weight. Beside the bed, a kind-hearted farmer remained, his face smeared with the dust of the fields, yet his eyes full of worry for this unfamiliar girl. With no family by her side, the procedures were delayed. The nurses could only administer fluids to keep her strength. Everything seemed suspended in helplessness. At that moment, Diep's phone vibrated faintly. Startled, the farmer picked it up. A man's anxious voice burst through the line. "Where's Diep? Why hasn't she come home?" The instant he heard the words "at the hospital," James nearly leapt to his feet, his heart clenched as if in a vice. Less than half an hour later, James arrived, his face taut, his eyes red with worry. He rushed into the hospital room and saw Diep lying motionless. In that moment, all thoughts of romance, the engagement ring, the proposal, vanished. What remained was only a choking pain. James clasped Diep's frail hand, pressing it to his chest. His voice trembled as he whispered, "Diep, you have to wake up. I promise. I won't let you suffer another wound." Under the cold hospital lights, the once strong man now seemed small, trembling before love. All the career, the projects, the calculations, suddenly none of it mattered compared to the fragile breath of the woman lying before him. In the stark white hospital room, the dry tap of a pen against paperwork echoed sharply. The doctor looked at James, his eyes lowering with hesitation, as if reluctant to voice the truth no loved one ever wishes to hear. He gently slid the test results across the table. At that moment, James's eyes widened, his whole body frozen. His ears rang, the words resounding like hammer blows. His grip tightened on the edge of the table, until his knuckles turned white. His breath came in ragged bursts, and a chill ran down his spine. A moment later, James bowed his head, his trembling hand covering eyes brimming with tears. He tried to hold them back, but hot streams spilled down, falling onto the lifeless sheet of paper. In his mind, flashes of memory pierced through. Diep's radiant smile, her weary figure working the fields, the bright hope in her eyes whenever she spoke of the future. Each image struck like shards of glass, cutting deep into his heart. The doctor placed a hand on James's shoulder, and sighed softly. "You must prepare yourself. But be strong, don't let the patient worry." James nodded, unable to utter a word. As the door closed behind him, the long hallway seemed to darken. He leaned against the wall, his shoulders trembling with suppressed sobs. For the first time in his life, the man who had faced countless battles in the ruthless world of business felt utterly powerless. And within him rose a silent vow. "No matter the outcome, I will stay by your side. If fate is cruel, I will use every ounce of my strength to shield you, to fight for every peaceful day you have left." James hastily wiped his tears, drew a deep breath, and forced himself into composure. For he knew that when he returned to the hospital room, Diep must see only a James who was strong and gentle, not the man who had just crumbled under this pain. In the quiet hospital room, the yellow light cast down on Diep's pale face, making her already fragile cheeks appear even weaker. James sat silently at the edge of the bed, dark circles shadowing his eyes after countless sleepless nights. Carefully, he lifted a spoonful of porridge, every motion slow, as if afraid even the slightest touch might bring her more pain. Diep's gaze lingered on him. A wave of emotion rose within her, both warmth and a tightening ache. The man before her, once accustomed to boardrooms, contracts, and cold decisions in the business world, had now become a figure of pure tenderness, patiently wiping the beads of sweat from her brow, adjusting the pillow behind her back, then gently feeding her spoon by spoon. Each gesture carried an unspoken worry, making her heart tremble with both gratitude and sorrow. In the silence, she could feel the exhaustion etched into his shoulders, though James tried to hide it. Whenever she opened her eyes, he was always there, as if even stepping away for a moment would leave him restless. That patience, that devotion, made her thankful yet pained, knowing he was carrying more than his share of the burden. She placed her frail hand gently over his. Her clear eyes shimmered with a fleeting fear, then softened into quiet trust. James clasped her hand tightly, needing no explanation, no promises. In his gaze was only the determination to keep her safe, no matter how much it drained him. In the pale golden light of the hospital room, two hands remained clasped, one fragile and thin, the other steady and strong. No promises, no flowery words were needed. James's quiet, unwavering presence alone was enough to chase away the darkness in Diep's heart. Standing at the fragile edge between illness and exhaustion, she realized that the most precious thing wasn't the luxuries of the outside world, but a shoulder to lean on, a hand that would never let go. And in that silence, love needed no name. It quietly bloomed, tender as a small flame, casting its gentle glow through the long night.
Trong ánh sáng